Okay, so we're really pleased to welcome you all, and I'd really like to start by saying a massive thank you to independent bookshops across the UK for supporting this event, and of course for everyone watching today and for buying these books and buying When I Was the Greatest. We have, amazingly, Jason Reynolds with us. Jason is a Carnegie winner, critically acclaimed, multi-award winning writer and poet. He is National Ambassador for Young People's Literature in the US and has written several books, including All American Boys, Boy in the Black Suit, Long Way Down, When I Was the Greatest, and the Run series. I'm not going to tell you which one's my favourite. Thank you, Jason, for being here, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And like you, I want to echo, shout out to all the indies in the UK that have shown support and that we've supported, and that I hope we all continue to support. All the love.
Oh, thank you. I'm definitely biased as an independent bookseller myself, so always appreciate that.
Sure.
So it's very early for you, Jason, and late afternoon for us. So hence why you look fresh and I don't.
I don't know if I look fresh. I look like I'm just getting going. You look like you're already in the midst of going. It's all good.
You're in a lovely, glamorous room, and I'm in a stock room. So this just talks about how it is. This is what, your day will also end up in a stock room, I'm sure, Jason.
Soon enough, you know.
So yeah, I mean, you've written a lot of books. I need to be transparent and say I'm a big fan, big fan. And in fact, we currently have an anti-racist kids club running in our bookshop, and Stamped is our book of choice, and the young version. So we're using Stamped to work through, and just an amazing piece of literature and really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I guess I'd like to talk a bit about When I Was the Greatest. Just because, why not? And just kind of just talk a little bit about that, and just find out a little bit more about you, and where you are and what you're doing, and so I guess, what does life look like for you now at the moment? What's your average day?
My average day, if I'm not traveling, is I get up at 6 o'clock, 6:30 at the latest. I typically try to get some exercise in, and then I read the newspaper. Like, it takes a while. Like, I exercise, I read the newspaper, have my coffee, and then around 8:30, I'm usually sitting up here. This is upstairs in my home. I'm usually up here and working, or I have another office downstairs. I work downstairs, wherever I can sort of find wherever I feel comfortable in the moment, you know. And then I work typically from around 8:30 to noon, have some lunch, and then work a little more until 2 maybe, and then take a nap. You know, like, it's all it's all, you know. Sometimes I hate to talk about it because it's so like, you know. And then I take a walk. I go get a bite, maybe have a few oysters, call my mom, call my brothers, like, you know what I mean. Like, it's a very it's a beautiful life, and an inspired life, and a curious life. But it is one that is disciplined, because that sort of 8:30 to 2 o'clock time is a sacred time. And unless I have to do sort of a talk or an event, or I have to travel, that time is blocked off every single day, Monday through Saturday, for me to get my work done.
See, I mean, I feel a lot less guilty about the fact that I don't get up at 6:30 now, because you get to have a nap. So I feel like we've evened out.
Exactly. I definitely get to have a nap.
So you're sitting in this rhythm, in a life that many writers would consider bliss.
Yes.
When did you think that this was possible? When did you get to a point you think, oh, actually, I could do this full time. This could be a thing.
Probably when I was like 31.
Okay.
Yeah, 31. I mean, I've been in the industry since I was 21, and you know, taking my bumps and bruises, and you go through the motion of trying to figure out, just trying to be honest and make the honest thing, and make the whatever is at the front of mind at any given time of our lives. And you hope somebody cares enough about it to buy it and to read it. but there's so many other factors involved, right? How that book is promoted, if how many what the book buy is, and if it exists in the stores, if it's good enough, right? Like, there's all these sorts of things, and so it took me a while. It took me 10 years to really feel like I could live on it. And even now, I mean, it's been a long time. I've lived like this for a very long time at this point. But there are moments where, you say to yourself, is this is this real, or will this last? Is it sustainable? It's tricky. That's why I work so hard, is because I recognize that, like, this is a blissful life. This is an amazing, privileged life to live, but it's one that can't be taken for granted, or it will be over. So the work is necessary, and me thinking is necessary, me sort of traveling, me sewing into the young people, sewing into the booksellers, sewing into the teachers, right? All those things have to constantly be working in order for me to earn the life that I live.
Yeah. So you talk about sewing into young people and sewing into teachers. And I mean, anybody who's watched you or really read your stuff you can really see that passion for young people kind of in the pages, and just people who have stalked you on YouTube, me maybe, okay, I did, yes. It's something you talk about a lot, but I guess maybe for our British audience here, just I think if we go back a bit, let's go back to when I was the greatest, because here's this summary of this, this young boy, and we're seeing this very particular way of living and struggles that he's facing.
Mm-hmm.
And yet throughout these pages, there is like this cheering on, I guess, of this young man. So what drives this passion for young people?
I think for me, young people have the ability to, young people still believe the world is a changeable place.
Mm.
And because young people still believe the world is a changeable place, I want to champion that, right? Because it is a changeable place. It just so happens that once you get older, it's really difficult to remember that sometimes. And I think for the youngins, they're like, no, I really believe that we're going to grow up and make a difference. I really believe that we're going to figure out how to fix some of these issues that have been going on for however many hundreds of years. I feel like we can create laws that'll bring peace to the world. I feel like we can save the planet. I feel like we can, right? Like they have a different sense of, they have a different sort of vigor around hope and around change that all of us used to have. You just get older and you got bills to pay, and you got, you know what I mean? You got like real life stuff that sometimes gets in the way. Which is why we have to make sure that they still feel like they can do these things, because at the end of the day, while they have that window of childhood, like from, they say from like 14, 15, 12 to like 30, that's like the window where you can really rock and roll. Something happens, I guess, around 30. I don't know if it's true. I'm almost 40 and I still feel young and rambunctious, but it is true that life does change. And I want to make sure that they have the battery in their backs now, that they have that I catalyze them and energize them and encourage them to go out there and get whatever they want. If you want to see a different world, then you go and make a different world. It's that simple. And I believe that you can, because young people have the ego to try, right? That's the brilliance. There's like a naive ego that young people have that is a wonderful gift, because it'll allow them to throw themselves at problems and that they just might be able to fix,
Yep. I hear you. I was a youth leader for a long time before I was a bookseller, and I think maybe that's why I'm in love with your book so much, because I think it's the passion is so evident. Yeah. In your pages. In the midst of that, there are lots of stereotypes in lots of ways in your books, and then there are these characters that break stereotypes. So we see toxic masculinity, I would say, in some of the characters in your books. And then, in When I Was the Greatest, Doris gives needles and tells him to knit. And how consciously are you looking to break and also reinforce in some ways, I guess, these stereotypes?
Sure. I think my job is to bear witness. And so I'm careful about pushing too hard on any point, or about preaching anything, or showing too much of my hand. But I do think that, like, some of the things that are considered stereotypes are just realities for some of us, right? Like the reality is that poverty is real. The reality is that toxic masculinity is a real thing. Abuse is real. Violence is real. These are things that happen in communities that I grew up in, and have lived in and still live in, right? Like it's a part of our lives sometimes. On the flip side, though, I also grew up in a community where I had a woman named oh God, Miss Barbara, who put needles in my hand and taught me to knit and crochet. That's a real thing, right? Like, and so imagine what it's like if you're a kid in this environment, but you know how to do something that people have associated with femininity, or being older, or all this little grandmas, right? And then imagine all your friends sort of being like, "Yo, actually, I want to learn how to do it too," which is what happened in my case, right? And that's in the hood. So these stereotypes, some of them are just truths and realities for some of us, but these things that break the stereotypes are also just truths and realities for some of us, right? Like, I know I grew up around a kid named Lenny. Well, he wasn't a kid. He was 10 years older than us, 20 years older than us, probably. Lenny was my buddy's uncle. Lenny was schizophrenic. And so Lenny would walk around the neighborhood, and he'd talk to himself, and he'd bang on people's doors, and but the stereotype would say, if you don't know that environment, the stereotype would say that we would tease Lenny or bully Lenny, or when the truth is that that's not true. We protected Lenny. And we love Lenny. We still love Lenny. My mom see Lenny all the time, come banging on her door and then just to ask her for cookies. Lenny's 65 years old now, right? And my mom said, "Oh, Lenny, come on in." She feels safe, right? We know who Lenny is, and we protect Lenny. That part of our community, that part of the stereotype is never shown, but it's just as real and as truthful as the gangsters. All of that's a part. We live in a whole world within our neighborhoods, and we just don't think about them that way.
So do you find it difficult then to, I guess, I also grew up in, I guess, the English equivalent of those kind of neighborhoods. Sure. And what I have found is that sometimes when I read books that are supposed to represent, that they end up just looking like caricatures.
Yeah.
And the bad people are it's too ridiculous almost. And right. Then these attempts to find Black joy just seem trivial. They seem laughable in that sense. So do you find it difficult to find that kind of line of?
I don't, because when you've grown up in that, like if you grow up in that kind of environment, that the people who are considered quote unquote bad people, that it's just not that simple, right? Like, yo, my homeboys did terrible things. And I don't know if they were terrible people though, right? Like, they just environment and sometimes it was circumstantial, right? I got to figure out how to take care of my sister. I don't have no money, so I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to figure out how to get her something to eat, right? Now, that might mean that I have to break a law, and I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying that that doesn't mean that he's not a good person. It just means that sometimes in these environments, our backs are against the wall and we feel like we don't have many other options, right? Doesn't mean that we don't, but we feel like we don't have many other options. And so I think for me, when I'm writing my characters, I want them all to be whole. Everybody's got a little bit of something in them, right? If you are doing the bad thing, you got a little good in you. And if you're doing the good things, you got a little bad in you. And there's a little sadness, there's a little joy. All of us have all those things happening to us all the time. And I want to show that, right? I want to show that, like, our lives are complicated lives. Everybody's. So there is no real villain and there is no real hero. We're all just journey folk. We're just people on the journey, right? And that's how I think about it.
But I guess in there, you've also, I haven't read every single one of your books, I confess, but certainly in the ones I've read, there's a resistance, I guess, maybe to challenge the system that has put people in these situations. So we don't talk about, where's the support system for needles and noodles. We don't, in The Boy in the Black Suit, we don't talk about where's the structural, help that would have changed this young boy's situation?
Sure.
And is that intentional?
Yeah, because I'm not writing the essay. Right. I'm writing a novel for young people through the eyes of young people. And so when I was a kid growing up in it all, I wasn't like, man, we really need more like systems around us so that we don't have to, because you just don't, when you're in it, that's not what you're thinking about. When you're in it, you're like, I just gotta get food. When you're in it, you're like, I gotta help my mom pay the rent. When you're in it, right? When you're in it, you're like, I gotta figure out how to fix this thing with my father. Like, that's what's happening. You're not thinking about like, they took my father away for these reasons. You're like, my father ain't here.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the reasons why he ain't here, the structural and government political reasons why he's not here, I don't even know what that is at 12, 13. I'm not even thinking about it at 12, 13 years old. I'm thinking about my father's not here and I need him here. So let me figure that out, right? And I don't ever want to press down too hard from an adult or an authorial standpoint, or an authoritative standpoint for that matter, to say like, hey kids, remember, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, there are systems at play here. They some of them already know that and some of them will learn that shortly after. But the story still got to be a story, not an academic paper.
Yeah. So then again, back to When I Was the Greatest, the ending is a happy ending, I would say. Did you know you were going to land there?
That's the second ending. The first version of that ending was it was almost too happy, and it was a little cheesy, and I had to go back and rework it, and so that's the better version of it. But I did know I wanted to land in a happy place. I don't think every book requires a happy ending. I don't think every story needs a happy ending. I did think that this particular story, we needed to see something without fixing everybody's problems, right? Mm-hmm. Like Needles and Noodles' mother, that's never fixed, mm-hmm. right? And Ali's parents are cool, but they're not together. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That doesn't, right? Like that's not what happens, right? Yeah. And so I like sort of being like, look, we're all okay, but I'm not going to say that we're still that things are unbroken.
Yeah.
Right. We're just okay, and sometimes okay is okay enough.
Yeah. Because I think without that ending, actually the weight of trauma would be too much in the book. Exactly. And as I said, I'm often reading books and thinking, oh, would I have given this to my youth group? Would I give this to young people? And right, I think without the ending, as I got kind of close to the end, I was like, oh,
it got tricky.
Yeah, definitely. So just, I guess, a bigger question. You're spending a lot of time with lots of young people in a time where, I mean, I'm in my 50s and I don't ever remember life having so many scary elements, I guess, to it, particularly for young people, for the challenges they're facing, and just violence and all the other things that are going on around them. I mean, just there's violence around almost all of our young people, particularly young Black people. And in the UK, it's a growing issue, and not just with gang violence, but police brutality and stuff like that. What in this dire time, what gives you hope for our young people?
It's a good question. I think that the beauty of youth is short memory and putting nothing before a laugh. It's like it's woven into who they are, right? And for the majority of them, it's like, man, a thing happens, and I had a friend of mine. She's like, yeah, my daughter went through this really tough thing, and she's crying, and then like 5 minutes later, she's like, yo, can we just go to the store and get some ice cream? And yeah. Like, it's just like, yeah, that's just, there's a persistence to youth. It's almost like youth is the stone that is rolling down the hill, right? Like nothing will stop the stone, right? Nothing will stop the stone, and it's gathering and gathering and becoming a bigger thing. But nothing will get in its way. And I think things may sort of try, things may sort of cause bumps, but I really believe that woven into the fibers of youth around the world is this sort of incessant need to laugh and to find something to do that is not sad. And it's not that they're afraid of sadness. They know how to feel their feelings. But they also are like, look, I got a lot of feelings and I'm going to feel this one for 10 minutes and then I'm going to go feel another one.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty. And they do that because they know that life is life. Whereas we get on with our lives because we have no choice. Responsibilities is what pushes us forward. For young people, it's life itself.
Mm.
Right? It's the curiosity and the potential of life itself that moves them forward, right? That propels them. Whereas for us, it's like, I got kids to feed. I got bills to pay. So even though my back is broken, I still got to hobble to work. I got to get over it. I got to move forward. It's a very different kind of thing. Whereas for them, it's like, I wake up in the morning. It's a new day. I feel better. I'm moving. Like, it's like life. I got an opportunity for everything being new again because they're young enough where everything is new every day. Everything, they're experiencing new things every day, new adventures, there's something about all of that I think, keeps me hopeful when it comes to them.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, when I used to do youth work, people used to say, it's so hard. How do you endure it? All the stuff that you have to do in the long hours and the terrible pay. But my answer was always, I've never laughed so much in my life. Just hilarious. I would never do a youth session and come out not with my head aching, just going, these people are so funny. They are the funniest people you'll ever meet. Yeah. Totally. Some other kind of just general questions. What are you reading?
What am I reading? Gosh, I was reading something last night. I don't remember what it's called, but it's coming out soon. It's about a jazz singer and a trumpet player, and I don't know. It's coming out soon. It's going to be good. What else am I reading at the moment? Sheesh. Ali Smith's new book, which is called Companion Piece. I'm reading that, which is cool. Danielle Clayton has this book called The Marvelers. I don't know if it's over there yet, but I hope it gets over there. It's amazing. So it's a kid's book. It's like it's almost like it's like Black Harry Potter almost. Okay. But it's like brilliant, and it's more rooted in sort of some of the Black American folk, like our folk stuff. So like instead of there being dragons and this, that, and the third, there's pit bulls and there's like, it's amazing. Yeah, it's a whole different way to think about magic and a magical world. So good. Okay. So cool. The Marvel. I'm sure it's coming over there soon. The Marvelers. So good. Yeah, that's what I'm checking at the moment. And some poetry. I mean, I'm reading a little bit of everything.
And do you put aside time for reading, or is it just like, oh no, it's just a moment, I'll pick something up?
I try to put aside time for reading. I work so hard though, but I try to lay on the couch and just pick up whatever's sitting there and dig into it. And then Sundays, I usually just try to really give myself a couple of hours to sit at some cafe and have a cup of coffee and get into it.
And then you've got something new coming up. Your new book, Oxygen.
Oh yeah. So it's funny because we publish on different schedules. I'm like, do I have something new coming up?
If you could move into your UK brain, please.
I know, right? I'm like, what? I'm like,
on this side of the pond.
On that side of the pond. Oxygen Mask is coming out over there, which is an interesting thing. It's hard to explain it. It's like an experimental manifesto of sorts. It's an exploration of 2020 and 2021. Really digging into how during 2020 specifically, we were all living lives that it seemed like everything happening to us was trying to suffocate us, was attacking the respiratory system, right? So, and especially in the US, you had, George Floyd, right, who died by suffocate. He was strangled, right? And then you had the tear gas in the street, which was a suffocating sort of substance. And then you had the wildfires in Los Angeles, which was a suffocating substance. And then you had COVID, which attacked the respiratory system, right? So everything seemed to be stripping us of breath. And I kept asking myself, me and my buddy Jason, who's also named Jason, kept asking ourselves, well, where are people finding their oxygen masks? And I think what we all realized in 2020 was all the small things in our lives were the things that were giving us breath. All the small things, everything that was once an annoyance seemed now like some sort of, anointment, right? It was like, oh, so my kids are crying. And then in 2020, it's like, oh, my kids are crying, which means my kids are alive.
Yeah.
Everything different, right? Oh, a small hug means something very different now than it did in 2019, right? These small things. And so this book is about capturing that without it being re-traumatizing, but also just saying that, like, we did learn something, and now we all understand that, like, there is something of value to sitting on the couch next to your loved one. There is something of value to giving your loved one a kiss and a hug and telling them that you love them. There is something of value to speaking to your neighbors, to going to the grocery store. So, like, think of like these small mundane, that all of the magic of our lives exists in the mundanity.
Yeah.
And now we know that.
Yeah. I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by this book. And just these connections between, these things, as you said, that have robbed us of our breath, and how just we connect with other people's experiences in that. Because I think that, so many of these things can feel so isolated, and I guess it's one of the things about COVID is like, well, everybody's affected by this, and so as a Black woman, when you're dealing with racial trauma and racist abuse, there's a disconnect there, because actually they're not things that your white peers and your white friends can understand or know or feel. But I love the way that you've brought this stuff together and connected it, and the commonality of it without taking away the unique experience for each individual. It's just amazing, absolutely amazing. I was talking to an author yesterday, actually, and we're just chatting about imposter syndrome, and it kind of nagged me in my head as kind of my new author question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, where is your imposter syndrome? So 10 being fully feel like an imposter. How did I get in this space?
I think it depends on the day. It depends on the project, right? What I'm working on. I mean, I'm probably somewhere at this point in the 5 or 6 range. I used to be at an 8, 9 range. I think at this point, I just trust the process. And I think part of that process is being insecure, right? Part of the process is feeling like you don't know what you're doing. Because the truth is that in order to make a good thing, something that at least is good to you, it's got to scare you a little bit. You got to be fighting above your weight class a little bit in order for you to be better. In order for you to make something that matters, I really believe you gotta really be swinging at something that might be a little stronger than you are. And I think that's where some of the imposter syndrome comes from. Just the sort of recognition that perhaps you've reached the capacity of your skill set, and that now you'll have to gain new skills to actually accomplish the job. So that used to really bother me, but now I'm just like, I know I'm jumping into this deep water, and I know I'm gonna feel like I'm drowning at some point, but I also know that I've done this 20 times, and that this is just a part of the process, and that there's no reason for me to continue to flail around as if I don't know what this is like. I know what this is like. I'm gonna jump in, I'm gonna feel terrible, I'm gonna feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to feel undeserving. I'm going to feel like it's all a ruse, like everyone will find out about me. And then I'm going to figure it out, and it's going to come out, and it's going to be the best that I could do, good or bad, the best that I could do. And I will have accomplished this almost impossible feat of writing another book, one more time. You know what I mean? So I'm at about my 5 or 6 most of the time.
Okay. So how many more books do you think are in you?
Oof, I don't know. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I don't know. I mean, I'm at around, in the US, something that's like 18, 19, I think, something like that. And it's hard to say. It's hard to say. What I will say is I don't know how many more books are in me at this pace. I think I can feel myself slowing down a little bit. I'm just getting older. You know what I mean? And I I'm just slowing down. Naturally, I'm just slowing down a little bit. And I just require a little more time and a little more energy and a little more room to think and live. And hopefully in the next 2 years, I'll start putting out a book every 2 or 3 years, just taking it easy. Right now I put out like 2 books a year, and that's just not sustainable. I mean, it's been sustainable for me for a long time, but I just am coming to the end of that part of my career, I think. I mean, I've proven my point. I've done the things at this point, I feel like I've said what I've needed to say. There's more to say, but just a different pace of it all. That's all. And I got some adult stuff I'm working on, and I've got, there are other things I want to explore.
Excellent. I love to hear that.
But the kids' books are not going to stop. I want to be clear for all the shorties watching, I'm not, I'm not getting out the game. I'm not, I love this. I love what I do for a living. I love writing for kids intentionally. And so that's not going to stop. There will be more and more and more. It just may be, one every couple of years instead of one a year or two a year. You know what I mean? That's all.
I mean, I think you sit in unfortunately, in lots of ways, you sit in a unique position because there are so few Black men writing for this age group. And I know, as a bookshop owner, it's like the constant cry for me is where are the Black men writing for our young people and just, portraying authentic Black characters. And it's so rare. And I know that you have said many times that this is intentional for you. You're not, it's not that someone decided this book should be for YA, but you were like, no, this is who I'm writing for. I guess, how do you encourage others to come into these groups and just to, so for us, we in our bookshop, we run lots of trying to schemes and lots of ways to try and encourage, particularly young Black men, to think about writing, to just tug into that book that's in them. And, I had a kid in the shop the other day who said, I've written a book, and he was about 7. And I said, have you? And he said, yeah, it's 4 pages. Well, it's probably not really a book. And I was like, it's definitely a book. It's absolutely a book. But how do you keep that going from my little 8-year-old customer?
I think it's tricky. I think about this all the time. I mean, I think they have to see us. I think for the kids that I'm writing for and writing to, and the kids that I grew up around, and because that's the other thing is that there are a few here's the thing. I think that there are, because you're right, there's a shortage of Black men writing. There's even less Black men writing from this particular experience. So there are some Black men writing, but a lot of them are writing fantasy, which is wonderful, by the way. And then others are writing from just a very different experience, right? Whereas I'm writing from this is, look, I tell everybody, I'm America's Alex Wheatle.
Yeah.
Right? That's my guy. By the way, shout out to Alex Wheatle. That's my man. That's my guy.
I interviewed Alex a few months ago and he said the same thing about you.
That's my guy, and his family lives around the corner from me here. So when he comes to town, we catch up. But Alex is my guy, and Alex, I think about I'm writing for Brixton, right? Or I'm writing about that environment, right? Not everybody can read these books and love these books and find the universal truth in these books, but the kids in Brixton need to see me, right? They see Alex, right? They know Alex from there. They know what Alex done been through. They know Alex. They know that it's all true. That he really does have a heart for you because he know you. He know what it is to walk them streets. He know what it is to be in them schools, right? And I think partially it's about making sure. And this is the reason why I work so hard to go where the young people are. It's not enough to write the book, right? You got to show up and say it's me. I got on sneakers and jeans and a t-shirt just like you. I'm covered in tattoos just like your brother, right? I talk just like your uncles, right? I come from it. This is what it is. And I think then they'll know oh, snap. So I can be that. I can do that too, right? Without having to change myself. I got to focus in school. Yes. And I got to do these things. Yes. But I ain't got to I don't got to pretend to be nobody that I'm not. right? And I think that's the biggest thing, is that people reading and writing, at its core, has always been, it should be universal, right? It's meant to be universal, but the way it's been disseminated and taught, it's always been elitist. And because of that, you got a lot of kids growing up in the hood who